section 2 is Carissa Explains It All.
Yes.
Somebody suggested Carissa's Conundrums, but I don't know that I like that one. So, sorry.
I like the alliteration of it.
I do too. So let's try to come up with a better name in the comments below. And if this is your first time here, hit that subscribe button right below us. We put out a video just about every day, and nearly kills me, and we make records. So let's talk about types of microphones.
All right, types of microphones. Something we use pretty much every day here. All right, what is a microphone? A microphone is a transducer that converts sound into an electric signal. It's used in hearing aids, telephones, public address systems, sound recording, two-way radios, megaphones, radio and TV broadcasting computers, ultrasonic sensors, and knock sensors. So pretty much everything.
Right, and to explain to everybody, when you make sound, you're compressing and decompressing the air.
Yes.
In a wave pattern, and a microphone picks that pattern up and converts it into electricity.
Yep.
And that electricity mimics the pattern of the air, and then you can take that electricity and run it through a speaker, and the speaker will mimic the pattern, and thus you get analog.
Yes.
Sounds like it should. So, yep. What's a microphone?
Okay, so that's
Hey, that looks like my microphone.
That is your microphone.
We use that on Freeform Fridays.
We do. We use many of the microphones pictured on Freeform Fridays.
Yeah. That one specifically on the last batch, that's the microphone that was on the piano. Yep. I like a condenser microphone on piano.
Yes. So in what we do, there's basically 4 types of microphones that get used. There's many more other types of microphones, but there's 4 that we use on a regular basis.
There's 4 that most people will encounter.
Yeah. Yep. Unless you're doing something special, then yeah. So first one up is dynamic microphones, which is also known as the moving coil microphone. Now, these are robust, relatively inexpensive, resistant to moisture, and have potentially high gain before feedback, which makes them really good for onstage use.
Yeah, they're a little less sensitive is really why you don't get the feedback. This microphone that I'm talking into right now, what you're talking into is actually technically a dynamic microphone.
Yes.
Just about every kick drum microphone you'll encounter is dynamic.
Yes.
What's shown on picture here is the Shure SM57, which comes really, really in handy if you need to, hang a picture as well as record audio.
And the SM58, which is basically the 57 with a big silver windscreen.
Yeah, it's got a different grill. And the windscreen actually changes the sound ever so slightly.
Yeah.
But if all you have is $100, that's a good way to start. I would start with a 57 just because you're going to like it on guitars and things more than you will the 58. And you can still sing into them. There's a lot of in the 70s they were used as vocal mics all the time.
Sure. I mean, they're, like I said, they're basically the same microphone. If you take that silver part off, it looks like the same microphone.
And pro tip, there's a really good mod you can do to an SM57.
Is there?
Yeah, you have to heat it, and you have to melt out all the wax inside of it.
Oh, that mod.
Yeah. And then that microphone will sound more like what you are talking into right now.
Yes.
Not exactly, because the SM7 that you're talking into is large diaphragm.
Right.
Which is the little plate that picks up the air. The one in there is about the size of a quarter. The one in the 57 is about the size of a nickel.
Yeah. So, okay. So dynamic microphones.
Yep.
They use a coil of wire attached to a diaphragm suspended in a magnetic field. That's how they work.
So it's wire.
Yeah. So
the diaphragm moves forward and backward.
I cover that.
Okay.
So sound enters the windscreen and moves the diaphragm. And when the diaphragm vibrates, the coil moves in the magnetic field, which produces a varying current in the coil through electromagnetic induction. So that's how you get the signal coming through the microphone.
It works the same way as a guitar pickup. A guitar pickup vibrates a metal string over a magnet, and the magnet converts it into voltage, which then goes out to the amplifier, which boosts the voltage and then pushes it out through a speaker, which replicates the vibration. What's shown here is an AKG D112. That's a German microphone, though I think they're now made in China.
I don't know anymore.
It's a large diaphragm. dynamic, just like you're talking into.
Right.
But that one's specifically made for kick drums.
Yes.
It's my first choice kick drum mic. Now, there's other kick drum mics. There's the Shure 52. I think it's a Beta 52 is what gets used a lot. The Electro Voice RE20, which you'll see on radios all across this country. A lot of radio shows will have them. The microphone you're talking into is a functional kick drum mic just fine, too.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. So dynamic microphones, they do not require phantom power.
Right.
So let's move on.
And we will cover that later. Next is ribbon microphones.
Yep.
They're similar to dynamic microphones in the way that they function, except they use a thin, usually corrugated metal ribbon suspended in a magnetic field. So when the ribbon vibrates, then that produces the current.
Right.
So because the ribbon is much less mass than a coil would be.
Massive. Nice typo. I love you.
You're going to get something chucked at your head.
Probably.
It responds to air velocity rather than sound pressure.
Right, because with dynamics and condensers, the diaphragm is usually a circle, and it's vibrating forward and backward.
Mm-hmm.
But the ribbon vibrates side to side.
And forward and backward.
Just side to side.
It's a thin little ribbon. It's
a thin little ribbon,
pretty
but
fragile.
it's only being picked up. The side to side motions, what's being picked up. Yeah, you don't. That's why these are the tough part with ribbon microphones is they're very susceptible to wind.
Mm-hmm.
You would never use them outdoors. But they're not nearly as sensitive as a condenser. But and they do a figure 8 pattern.
Yes.
Almost all of these microphones we've talked about up until now do what's called a cardioid pattern. It picks up everything in front of it and to the side of it.
I was going to cover patterns in a different slideshow.
We'll do that another time.
Oh, good.
But these are figure 8s. Some of the really classic RCA, the really great microphones from like the 40s, 50s, these would have all been ribbons.
Yeah, the radio era.
Radio era. Yep. All right, what's next?
Next is condenser microphones.
Which is what I'm talking into right now.
Yeah. They're also called capacitor microphones or an electrostatic microphone. The diaphragm acts as one plate of a capacitor, and the vibrations produce changes in the distance between the plates, which alters the charge.
So here's what we're doing next week. Next week, you're explaining how a capacitor works.
Okay.
All right. So if you haven't subscribed already, subscribe now, and next Monday, that video will go up.
Okay, so this picture is the interior of, I believe it's an Octavia 319 condenser microphone.
Octava, yeah.
Octava, thank you.
And you see the little screw in the middle? That's unique. The dynamics, I don't think, have the screw in the middle.
No, I don't think they do. So there's that.
And generally, so go back. So which part of this is getting the electricity? It's the plate, right? Because these take phantom power.
Right, and I cover that on the next slide.
All right, let's go to the next slide.
So they generally produce a high-quality audio signal, which is why they're so popular.
They're very sensitive.
Yes, they require only a very small mass to be moved by the incident sound wave.
Which is why they're sensitive.
And they require a power source to establish both the capacitor plate voltage and power the microphone electronics.
That's the phantom power. It's a 48 volt. Almost every interface has it, and if whatever you're using doesn't have phantom power, there's boxes you can buy.
There's boxes. There's some microphones that actually require a battery in order to instead of phantom power, depending on the design of the microphone.
Yep. And I will say this, with condensers, they're usually more susceptible to high SPL, sound pressure level.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, me talking is fine.
Yeah, you talking is fine. Like, overhead room mics are fine.
But you wouldn't want to. It's usually a good idea to stick one right on the grill of a very loud guitar amp,
or anywhere, like right on a drum head.
Yeah, though ironically, the Neumann U47, which is a large diaphragm condenser, like I'm talking into, a FET as well, which is the type of transformer that's in it. Mm-hmm. That was famously used on Phil Collins's Face Value for the kick sound, which is in the air tonight.
Oh, is that what got that sound?
That's what that sound is.
Oh, okay.
But when you mic a kick with a condenser, you don't put it in front of the sound hole because it'll just blow it up.
Right.
Don't do that.
Right. That's a good way to destroy a microphone.
Yeah, you put it closer to the edge. You back it up just a little bit, but you're gonna get a lot of bleed with a condenser microphone. That's generally why dynamics are kick mics.
Mm-hmm.
What's shown here is my NT5s. These are small diaphragm pencil condensers.
Mm-hmm.
Small diaphragm condenser, pencil condenser. ISK Pro Audio was nice enough to give me a pair of little gems. We'll do a shootout between these and my Samson CO2.
Okay.
We'll do a shootout here coming up. I've got a stereo bar. I've been meaning to do this.
Okay.
I just got 100 things going on.
Yes.
So these little pencil condensers, in my opinion, actually emulate the sound of your ear better than any of the others.
You think?
Yeah. So like in photography, they talk about how lenses will create distortion and that a 50 millimeter is the closest thing to what your eye sees.
Okay.
To my ear, the small diaphragm condenser is the sound. They pick up, I mean, they're very small, but they pick up low frequencies very well.
They do.
And like you wouldn't put it on a kick drum, but that's just because they're really susceptible to SPL.
Mm-hmm. So we usually use them for overhead mics.
I use them for overheads. I use them on guitars, like acoustic guitars.
Okay.
They're great on acoustic guitars. So are ribbons. Pretty much anything I throw on a good sounding acoustic guitar is going to sound right. But yeah, these sound pretty close to what your ear sounds like. They make great room mics.
Mm-hmm.
And these Rhodes were made in Australia, so that's interesting. And this is actually the second Rode microphone we've shown on the podcast. So shout out to Rode.
Yes.
But shout out to ISK for giving me free mics.
That too. Okay. And then we come to the last one.
That's not a microphone. That's an inducer. They're not microphones. They're piezo elements that
They're
you
still
stick on a
piezo
guitar.
elements, and
I'm not calling a piezoelectric microphone is usually a pressure zone microphone, where they'll put it on a plate.
yeah,
And what you're showing here is one of these things you stick on a guitar, which
it's the
super
same
common.
concept.
Same concept,
It's the same concept. I mean, it's
but the pressure zone mic, this is picking up the vibration. What you're showing here is picking up the vibration of the guitar itself.
right,
of
and
the
that's
body.
that's what these are usually used for. They're usually used to pick up the acoustic musical instruments to amplify the sound. That's what they do. They pick up the vibrations.
Yeah, but they're not converting air. That's the difference.
No, they're converting vibrations. That's what they're doing.
Right. And they're not picking up air vibrations. They're picking up vibrations off of like a wood panel or plastic panel. All right.
Okay.
We're blasting through this one because those don't count.
Well, that's it.
Fair enough.
So,
All right, what's next? Section 3?
section 3.
Cool.